Welcome to Life Simulator. Here, you can experience different lives and discover how a single decision can shape your destiny. Today, your chosen path is Full-Time Trader. Chapter 1. A Normal Life. You were born into an ordinary family. Your father worked long hours in a factory, leaving early in the morning and returning home late at night. Your mother carefully managed every dollar the family had. As a child, none of this seemed unusual. But as you grew older, you realized your parents were always worried about money. Right after payday, things would feel a little easier. But by the end of every month, dinner on the table became simpler and simpler. One evening, when you were 16 years old, you saw your father sitting silently on the couch, while your mother repeatedly checked a stack of bills. In that moment, you realized something for the very first time. Working hard doesn't always change your life. Chapter 2. The Dream. 2 years later, you turned 18. One afternoon, while walking through downtown with your friends, a bright sports car pulled up outside a cafe. A young man, probably in his 20s, stepped out wearing an expensive watch and a tailored suit. He confidently walked inside, while people on the street turned their heads to look. You couldn't help but stare. One of your friends casually said, "He's a traitor." You looked down at the sneakers you'd been wearing for the past 2 years. Then you looked back at the sports car. On the way home, a question kept repeating in your mind. How can someone so young have what most people spend their entire lives chasing? That night, while scrolling through your phone in bed, a video caught your attention. How I made my first million through trading. The video showed profit screenshots, luxury apartments, overseas vacations, and complete financial freedom. You were hooked. At 2 a.m., you were still awake. Your mind was filled with visions of wealth and freedom. For the first time, you wondered, if I could make money trading, maybe my parents wouldn't have to work this hard anymore. The next morning, you made the first major decision of your life. You opened your laptop and searched how to start trading. From that day forward, you spent hours every day studying candlestick charts, technical analysis, and market fundamentals. Chapter 3. The Beginning. But soon, you discovered something important. Learning was free. Trading wasn't. Your bank account had only $127, not even enough to properly get started. So you decided to earn the money first. Over the next year, while your friends were partying, traveling, and enjoying their youth, you delivered food during the day, worked at a convenience store at night, and washed dishes on weekends. After every shift, you stayed up studying the markets. Some nights, you fell asleep at your desk. Some nights, you questioned whether you were being unrealistic. But whenever you thought about that sports car and your parents' exhausted faces, you found the motivation to keep going. On your 19th birthday, you opened your banking app and saw your savings had finally reached $5,000. You knew the game had officially begun. You opened your first trading account. When you placed your very first trade, your hands were shaking. The next morning, you immediately checked your account. Green numbers. You had made $80. It wasn't much, but you were so excited you couldn't sleep that night. For the first time in your life, you had earned money without trading hours of your time for it. Chapter 4. Everything Goes Right. Over the next few months, the market seemed to favor you. Your account grew from $5,000 to $6,000, then $8,000, then over $10,000. Every winning trade made you believe in yourself a little more. Trading felt easier than working a regular job. Friends started asking you for advice. Your family began supporting your decision. For the first time, you felt like success was within reach. At 20 years old, your account reached $15,000. You bought your first premium smartphone. At 21, Your account crossed $30,000. You treated your family to the nicest dinner they'd ever had. Your father smiled, patted your shoulder, and said, "Looks like you finally found your path." That night, you felt like you had won the world. But the market doesn't reward beginners forever. At 22, after more than a year of consistent profits, you started believing your judgment was always right. You stopped respecting risk. You stopped listening to advice. You increased your position sizes. You chased bigger profits. Your account continued growing. 30,000 became 50,000. 50,000 became 80,000. You started imagining yourself becoming a millionaire. That's when you quit your job and became a full-time trader. At first, life felt perfect. You woke up whenever you wanted. You made money from home. Your friends envied your lifestyle. Social media traders made you feel like you belonged among them. You bought an expensive watch, upgraded your computer setup, and started planning for a luxury house and your dream sports car. Chapter 5. Losing everything. Then, one day, at age 23, everything changed. The market suddenly crashed. At first, you weren't worried. Every previous dip had eventually recovered. This one didn't. Your account began shrinking. You lost $5,000 in a day. Then another $10,000. Within a week, 1/3 of your account was gone. For the first time, you felt fear. But you refused to admit you were wrong. You kept telling yourself, "It'll come back." So you bought more. Your losses reached 50%, then 70%. You stopped sleeping. You became anxious. You avoided questions from your family. Whenever your parents asked how trading was going, you forced a smile and replied, "Everything's fine." But it wasn't. Your account was collapsing. At 24, the day that would define your future finally arrived. A major news event hit the market. Prices moved violently. You watched your account balance fall. $50,000, $30,000, $10,000. Then, zero. The room became completely silent. You sat in front of your monitor, unable to move. 4 years of effort disappeared in a single day. Chapter 6. Starting over. The months that followed were the darkest period of your life. You went back to work. The same office jobs you once looked down on were now your reality. The people who admired you disappeared. Some even mocked your failure behind your back. Every time you saw former trading friends posting their success online, it felt like a knife twisting deeper. You began asking yourself a painful question. Maybe I'm not meant for this. On your 25th birthday, you stood at a crossroads. Give up trading forever and live a stable life? Or start over and take one more chance? You chose the second option. But this time, everything would be different. You stopped chasing quick riches. You stopped dreaming about overnight success. You focused on risk management. You kept a trading journal. You analyzed every mistake. The younger version of you tried to predict the market. The older version learned to control himself. For 5 years, you rebuilt everything. Chapter 7. A different kind of success. At 30, things finally started to change. Your first consistently profitable year. Then another. Then another. The profits weren't spectacular, but they were real, and they were sustainable. At 35, you got married and became a full-time trader once again. This time, you weren't reckless. You had a proven system. You had discipline. You had patience. Your account grew steadily year after year. At 37, your son was born. As you watched your exhausted wife holding your newborn child, you realized how much she had sacrificed for your family. In that moment, you only wanted one thing: to buy a home that truly belonged to all of you. No more moving from rental to rental. No more uncertainty. At 40, you bought your first house. And something interesting happened. The young man who entered trading because of a sports car finally had enough money to buy his dream one. You walked into a dealership. The salesperson showed you the latest sports car. The younger version of you would have signed the paperwork immediately. But now, you simply smiled. Instead, you bought a safe, comfortable SUV big enough for the entire family. As you watched your child laughing in the back seat, you finally understood something. At 18, you wanted the admiration of strangers. At 40, you wanted your family to arrive home safely. Chapter 8: The Crisis. A global financial crisis shook the world. Investors panicked. Markets crashed. Billions disappeared. But this time, you stayed calm. You had survived worse. You followed your rules. You managed your risk. And when the storm finally passed, you were still standing. For the first time in your life, you understood what real success looked like. It wasn't making money. It was surviving long enough to keep playing the game. Chapter 9: The Life You Wanted. After 50, wealth was no longer your goal. It became a tool. You spent more time with your family. You traveled. You enjoyed life. You began mentoring younger traders and sharing lessons from your journey. Whenever someone asked for your secret to success, you always gave the same answer. The market doesn't reward the smartest people. It rewards the people who survive. At 60, you finally achieved the financial freedom you once dreamed about. No fleet of luxury cars, no flashy lifestyle, just peace. You could trade from a beachside cafe, or close your laptop and spend the day with your family. You realized that the most valuable thing wasn't the money. It was having the freedom to choose how you lived. Chapter 10: Game Over. At 80 years old, you sat in a rocking chair, watching the sunset. Your life replayed before your eyes. The teenager who envied a sports car. The beginner who celebrated an $80 profit. The trader who lost everything. The man who learned discipline. Then you remembered that day at 18, the sports car outside the cafe. For years, you thought that car represented success. But now you understood the truth. The thing that changed your life wasn't the car. It was the young man who refused to give up. Life Simulator is ending. Final results. Profession: full-time trader. Highest account balance: $3,800,000. Major failures: 1 account blowup. Major crises survived: 3 market crashes. Family happiness: 85%. Life satisfaction: 92%. Final ranking: A rank life. You didn't become the richest person, but you became a better one. Game over. What life will you choose next?